Hi, everybody. This is David Holtz with the Alternative Life Guide, and I am here today with Tom Braford. Tom is an eco-pioneer, a carbon-positive sustainability practitioner located in St. Louis, Missouri. His background is from a farming family in the upper Midwest. He has also been into social science, construction, and financial planning throughout his life. With his wife, Carol, he is a founding member of the Co-Housing Association US and the St. Louis chapter of the US Green Building Council. So Tom, welcome to the show today.
I am delighted to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
So Tom, I'd like to just get into this. We are building a net positive eco-village system starting in St. Louis. And I'd like for you to tell everybody, what is a net positive eco-village?
Well, net positive is basically a strategy where you're committed to putting more in than you're taking out from society, the environment, and the economy. What makes our company and prototype project really unique is how comprehensively we're doing that. So it's really a whole lifestyle that we're going for that's post-carbon. We're committed to being net positive in carbon, food, power, water, waste conversion, and employment and transportation. That last one, transportation, is a big one. It's the largest piece of our carbon footprint in St. Louis. It doesn't do much good to just work on a piece of it.
No,
we're at the point we need whole system solutions.
Right. You got to touch all those fronts at once. So why is it important now to have this net positive eco-village?
It's been important for a while, but now it's really critical because the scientists are saying we're down to a few years or even a few months window to really start moving things in the other direction, or we're going to reach some tipping points that damage our climate and our Earth world system beyond what we can recover from. At this point, if we really jump on it, we think that we can hold the line on species loss and a lot of other things, and by 2050 be well on our way to recovery.
Boy, I hope so. So you mentioned that scientists are saying that it's really important to get the ball rolling on technology and infrastructure development like this. Which scientists specifically have you been looking at?
The National Academy of Science, USA, did some research, and what it's really going to take to get the scale and the speed that we need is to utilize social tipping points that are what we're seeing going in the wrong direction right now with the coronavirus. So there's this article on social tipping dynamics for stabilizing Earth's climate by 2050. So I'm really excited about this because this is what I've been saying, is that we're going to create an epidemic of sustainability and economic progress in the St. Louis region, which will then go pandemic in the world. Well, now we have hard facts and very prestigious organization that says, yeah, this is really possible. We can harness human agency, which we're seeing is possible with the coronavirus. Scientists have been saying for years that we need to be on a pre-World War II footing when it comes to climate. And now we're demonstrating that we're still capable of that because we're gearing up very quickly to address the corona pandemic.
Right. And I think that it just shows, like you just said, we have the ability to roll out the big guns, so to speak. And I think that it is high time we create an epidemic of sustainability and climate change action beyond what's already sweeping the planet. And you mentioned starting here in the St. Louis region, we've talked about how we are going to create eco-villages in several different levels of our region: urban, suburban, exurban, and rural. Could you explain the difference in urban, suburban, exurban, and rural, and why it's important to have an eco-village in every area?
Yeah, sure. Buckminster Fuller famously said, don't spend any energy or time resisting the status quo. Just create a better model and the status quo will change.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's our idea. We need to just demonstrate to people that it's possible to live a post-carbon lifestyle very comfortably and affordably right now. And of course, we need to do that across society. We're talking about creating a network of linked eco-villages.
Mm-hmm.
And so and really what we're out to do is create a more efficient and synergistic urbanism, but it's really a society. We're rebuilding society from the bottom up. And so there are many synergies between rural, suburban, and our farmland and the in-between hinterland of that's sometimes called exurban, where you've got few houses in that zone between. And so, it really makes sense. In fact, from a marketing standpoint too, the biggest challenge with our millennial friends is that they say, well, I'd like to live in an eco-village, but I don't know if I want to live in a rural one or an urban one. If I,
Mm-hmm.
My job's in the city, but I'd really like to be closer to nature. Well, we're creating a way to do both. And I think the rural one can really make a big contribution right now, because we're in another farm crisis that's maybe worse than in the 80s, where you've got farmers committing suicide because they're under so much stress with thoughts of losing the farm, and they're all over 65, and the kids don't want to farm anymore. And yet there's these millennials that would love to get a chance to farm.
Mm-hmm.
But individually, there's no way they can break into that on a scale that's sustainable.
Right.
So creating eco-villages, getting a chance to bridge that gap between the rural and the urban and the exurban and the suburban. That's something that needs to happen as we unify the nation and the world socially, economically, and environmentally.
I agree with that. You also mentioned in our conversation, along with the eco-villages in the different areas, we would have green business parks. What do you mean by a green business park?
It makes sense to locate as much of the activity as we can at the individual eco-villages, but their things are better shared between several eco-villages. So we have some our 4Rs breakthrough technologies that we want to be able to manufacture. We're upping the efficiency of development by initially starting at our eco-village sites. So interim use is part of our strategy, but at some point we want to move that manufacturing to a centralized location where it can benefit people that need employment. Also, we're going to do as much source separation, recycling, use, reuse, redesign as we can to limit the waste stream as much as possible. There are still a number of plastics and other things that there's just no good way to recycle. So waste to energy is an option, and Drawdown, they refer to it as some regrets option. So most of the Drawdown, the book, I'm referring to the book edited by Paul Hawkins that came out 2 or 3 years ago, that lists 100 ways that are working right now that if we took to scale would make a huge difference with global warming and lots of other seemingly endemic challenges.
It's an amazing call to action.
Yeah, and it costs, and this technology the price tag on it's $1 million. So if you spread that over 5 eco-villages, it's cost effective to haul that little bit of waste, and then that facility is available for other people as well.
Right, creating something beneficial for the region.
Yeah.
So we talked about a time frame. You're really trying to start this whole project now, this year. And talk to me about that.
Well, we're actually underway now. We're on the ground. We have land, buildings. We're 80% complete with design. We've got millions of dollars sunk. We've got millions more in the form of tax credits that have already been committed to the project. And we just need to raise a few $100,000 more to finish up our pre-development, and we'll be well underway. And so within the next 3 to 5 years, we expect to get the core of the network going in the city and have some urban, exurban, and rural sites going as well.
That's fantastic. Now, this definitely sounds kind of like a pie in the sky dream for some people, living in community where you're growing your vegetables on site and having a kind of planned attitude towards handling the environmental issues. How exactly do you put a project like this together? We talked about how there's different aspects from the business to the actual construction and then creating the community. Could you just start with the business? How exactly are you going to approach it?
I'm kind of a social science geek. So I'm really excited about this National Academy of Science article, because finally someone with some real credentials and a track record and stuff is saying, the social sciences are as important as the so-called hard sciences. And so we know that people want to affiliate. We are a social species. We don't have to start from scratch with this. This is not something that we're completely inventing. This is more of an innovation than an invention.
Okay.
So we're combining movements that have been around for decades.
Oh.
The Mondragon style worker-owned co-ops that have been around for 65 years and account for 10% of the Spanish economy, and there's a $35 billion a year enterprise, still manage one worker, one vote. So there's something between socialism and capitalism that is a proven model already. There's also the co-housing movement that's been around for 30 years, and there's a couple hundred communities up and running in the U.S. And of course, the International Ecovillage Network. Now, the ecovillages have been mostly in the past in rural areas.
Okay.
So that more applies to the agriculture and the on-site economy aspects of what we're doing.
But we're making an urban eco-village, which is the real innovative twist on the whole thing. Yeah. And so talk to me a little bit about the building part of it. You mentioned that we have existing buildings, and then you referenced a 4Rs technology. Tell me about that.
So I'm also going to do a shout out right here for Hunter Lovin's new book, Our Future, Creating an Economy and Service to Life. So it's a very prescriptive book, and one of the things that she says, we need to buy some time right now. And one of the best ways, she says, to do that is to create building systems that are simple, elegant, and can utilize local materials, labor, and capital. Right. And so that's what our rapid integral building system does. It utilizes recycled cars and tin cans in the structural part of it, and 100% post-consumer polystyrene, which lasts for 1,000 years in the landfill, but it's great in the walls and floors and ceilings and roofs of your house. And then we're taking a cue from the way St. Louis was built from the beginning. The earliest modern city, brick city, you know, after the big fire, was created by digging out the basements, hauling the clay to local kilns, and bringing back the bricks and building a fire-rated home. And so we need to do some further excavation, because one of our innovations is solar, wind, and water capture canopy that can be seasonally enclosed around central courtyards so that we can raise food year-round on site, and also control the quality of our air as well as water and food and everything else. There was an article in National Geographic magazine just this month, or last month, I think, that we can grow seven to 9 times as much food with, you know, a fraction of the amount of water and nutrients indoors. Of course, it's going to be much more efficient if you're growing under a solar canopy where you're already getting 25% of the light you need from the clear stories on the backside of the collectors and around the edge of the canopy than if you're trying to do that in an old warehouse.
Right.
So again, it's upping the efficiency and synergy of the way we do urbanism. And that's very important because we're already over 50% of the population of the planet, 7.5 billion people living in cities. And by 2050, they say it's going to be 70%.
Yeah.
And we're going to have 2 billion more people. So we've got to start doing as much as we can really close at hand.
Right.
So we're going to excavate the cisterns for the area under our parking for our fleet of electric vehicles, which will be in the basements of the buildings, for heat storage, labyrinth, and cisterns. And we'll then use that clay in combination with dredged sand from the Mississippi a couple miles away with a non-toxic binder in very low quantities. A company called Roadpacker has invented that they're already making building materials out of as well. It'll harden up just like brick. It doesn't have to be fired. So we're going back to the way St. Louis was built to start with. You know, and we're utilizing existing buildings because we haul all that to the landfills and then have to haul in new materials. That drives up the carbon footprint.
Yeah, that's really good planning. We talked about how the population density is supposed to increase in the coming years, and how the co-housing community is part of a foundation of this concept. Could you tell me about creating the intentional community in the eco-village?
Okay, well, I made reference to that earlier with saying, you know, that this is really just an extension and combining of 3 or 4 movements that have been out there already for a few years: the cooperative business, co-housing, eco-village, intensive urban agriculture, full complement of renewable energy systems. And socially, it's really what the co-housing, eco-village, and co-op business movements are doing is they're all excited about something called sociocracy, which has been around for a while, which is a way to effectively make shared decision-making that's done at the level where it really needs to be done. So if you've got your party of 15 workers that are building with the RIB system, and then that's cross-linked with all the other sociocracy circles in the eco-village, and you can have rapid decisions that are where you consent on decisions that are good enough for now, and you can always revisit them later. So you're always upping the quality of your lifestyle. It's a way to have 150 people that live in an eco-village be connected at that level, be connected at the level of a co-housing community, 45, 50 households, and then these smaller groups that are part of the worker-owned co-ops that are raising the food and building the eco-villages and a lot of other things.
That sounds like a really neat organizational system. So how are you going to pay for it? How are we funding this project?
That's another area where Hunter Levins really hit the nail on the head when she said we have to get away from this short-termism in the way we do our economy. Mm-hmm. And at this year's State of the local Green Business Association chapter meeting, they said that the number of green buildings in the St. Louis region and around the country is actually going down at a time when we need more of that. Mm-hmm. And the biggest contributing factor is that the investors now are saying they got to have a 3 to 5 year turnaround on their investment. And that makes it really difficult, especially with the green business, because it's much more efficient, but on a longer scale.
It seems in the green side of the world, the true eco-friendliness, it just takes a little bit longer of a time period, a little bit greater of a thought.
It's a bigger payback, but it does take a little bit of time. Mm-hmm. And so we've now have the perfect match for that, because our prototype project and several more that we have in the pipeline in St. Louis are located within the opportunity zone. And there's opportunity zone across the country in 25% of the low-income census tracts. We see that actually creates jobs and opportunity for low-income communities. You know, some of it is ending up helping areas of the country that really don't need any help. But there is this really positive side to it of creating opportunity for more people. And it also creates an opportunity that a lot of investors are probably going to be very interested in right now, mm-hmm. because you can defer your capital gains and reduce them. And it incentivizes a 10-year hold, and there are no capital gains on that, which makes it possible to really have this green business model work. And it gives some place for that 20% that's just come out of the stock market to go to avoid the capital gains that they're going to have to pay. Because it all came out, you know, we've got a whole year's gains that have now come out in a week or two. This is a national opportunity because the opportunity zones are 25% of low-income census tracts, and they are in cities and small towns and even some rural areas throughout the country.
Fantastic. What an opportunity for America. You know?
Yeah, really.
I think it really is. And I definitely hope that investors go to the links that I'm going to post and learn a little bit more about opportunity zones and how that could be an asset in this time of market volatility, you know?
What we're seeing is this is an opportunity to provide, you know, the kind of rates of return that people have been getting in the stock market or better with less risk. But it's not going to drive up the cost to the homeowners and business owners, because one of the things that 10-year hold lets us do is create revolving funds.
Okay.
And that's allowable under the way Treasury created the rules for the opportunity zone.
And so in addition to the opportunity zone funding, there's also a variety of other things. You mentioned tax credits. We're also thinking about crowdfunding along some line. Tell me about the tax credits. Where do those come from?
Missouri has more tax credits than any other state.
Oh,
The ones that really can benefit us in the city of St. Louis are state and federal historic tax credits, of course, the renewable energy credits, and we have a program that's specific to Missouri called Neighborhood Preservation Act tax credit. The buildings don't have to be historic 50 years, and I think they actually reduced it to 40 years or older. Then it's a 35% tax credit. So,
oh wow.
So that can make a huge difference. Then there are also R&D tax credits, which can offset your payroll tax and any income tax. You can really take all the risk out of it. You know, some of the, I mentioned that our project's a prototype. We've already done enough initial experimentation, and system that our RIB system is based on has been around for several years. So we know this stuff is going to work, but we can actually, you know, take the risk out of it, because it's not going to cost us anything to experiment, and then our co-op construction companies can give a guaranteed bid, so the investors know that this is going to work and they're not going to lose their money.
That's really good.
And the owners know, the buyers know, you know, what it's going to cost them to live there.
Right. Well, it sounds like a pretty well-funded project if we can get the ball rolling in that direction. And speaking of getting the ball rolling, how do people contact you to talk with you about more about this and to potentially get involved?
Yeah, it's going to take a huge team on the ground in St. Louis, but across the country. And there are ways that people can get involved and be eco-pioneers from where they live. Somebody just yesterday volunteered to do a bunch of research for us. The best way to contact us is Braford, Braford, my last name. And you got to make sure that you don't put a D in the middle. It's Braford, not Bradford, at sbcglobal.net.
Braford at sbcglobal.net.
Yeah, that's correct.
And so for our fellow eco-pioneers that want to get active today, how can they do that? How can somebody take action right now?
Well, shoot us an email. You know, we're still expanding our design team. We're led by the great grandfather of the sustainability movement, Sim van der Rijn, who the New York Times years and years ago referred to as the intrepid pioneer of the eco frontier. Well, you can join Sim in continuing to pioneer as we create this new model to sustain civilization and the planet.
Yeah. You know, it's a brave new world for sure on planet Earth right now. And I think that we definitely have the technology at hand. We just need to apply it. It sounds like the eco-village development is a really good way to apply it. And it sounds like you have a great plan of action for this, Tom.
And if there are people on the coast that have wanted to live in co-housing for a long time but have been priced out just by the price of housing and stuff there, well, St. Louis is a great opportunity. We're going to have senior co-housing. We're going to have empty nester co-housing. We're going to have young families, and we're going to have some co-living opportunities as well. Nomad millennials, you know, that can really go anywhere. We invite you to come to St. Louis and help us rebuild civilization and the planet from the bottom up.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for your time today. You mentioned that you wanted to read a poem to close out.
Yes, I want to be very cognizant of the fact that a lot of people are hurting and challenged. So this was written by Brother Richard Hendrick, who is part of a religious order in Canada, and it's called Lockdown. Yes, there is fear. Yes, there is isolation. Yes, there is panic buying. Yes, there is sickness. Yes, there is even death. But they say that in Wuhan, after so many years of noise, you can hear the birds again. They say that after just a few weeks of quiet, the sky is no longer thick with fumes. Blue sky and gray and clear. They say that in the streets of Assisi, people are singing to each other across the empty squares, keeping their windows open so that those who are alone may hear the sounds of family around them. They say that a hotel in west of Ireland is offering free meals and delivery to the housebound. Today, a young woman I know is busy spreading flyers with her number through the neighborhood so that the elders may have someone to call on. We are always encompassed by love. Those are demonstrations of that. So open the windows of your soul, and though you may not be able to touch across the empty square, sing.
That's beautiful. Awesome. Well, Tom, thank you so much today. It's been a pleasure talking with you about the Ecovillage development in St. Louis. And we'll make sure that we have links for all of the viewers to access all the information that you've talked about so far. I look forward to talking with you next time. Have a
Okay,
great day.
terrific. All right, thank
All right,
you.
bye. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Tom Braford and his wife Carol are amazing people, and they're doing an amazing project in St. Louis. I hope that you'll reach out to Tom and connect with him for more information through his email address, braford@sbcglobal.net. Please visit these links to the Arizmendi Ecovillage presentation and website at arizmendiecovillage.com. The presentation link can be found with the others below this video. Check out the links below the video for all the other information like opportunity zones and cooperatives. Thanks for joining us, and have a great day.